Today, we're diving deep into a story that's shaking the balance of power in Europe. Vladimir Putin, once confident about Russia's dominance in the Baltic Sea, is now watching that control slip right through his fingers. The Baltic region, long considered a strategic lifeline for Moscow, is rapidly turning into one of his biggest nightmares. As NATO strengthens its presence, and countries like Denmark, Sweden, and Finland tighten their grip, Russia's influence is shrinking fast. What was once a secure maritime gateway for the Kremlin is now becoming a zone of vulnerability and fear. For years, the Baltic Sea was seen as Russia's backyard, a vital route connecting St. Petersburg to the world and a crucial point for military movement. The Russian Navy's Baltic Fleet, based in Kaliningrad, gave Putin leverage over Europe's northern flank. But things have changed dramatically. The invasion of Ukraine triggered a geopolitical shockwave, pushing Finland and Sweden, two nations that stayed neutral for decades, into the arms of NATO. This single move transformed the map of Northern Europe and left Russia surrounded on almost every side. Putin's strategic miscalculation has come back to haunt him. As Finland officially joined NATO, the alliance's border with Russia doubled overnight. Then Sweden's entry sealed the deal, turning the Baltic Sea into what some analysts now call a NATO lake. Every country bordering the Baltic, except Russia, is now under NATO's umbrella. That means the freedom of movement that Russia once enjoyed is practically gone. Any attempt to flex power in the region now risks an immediate and unified NATO response. This new reality is a nightmare scenario for the Kremlin, and it's forcing Putin to rethink every move. Denmark, in particular, has become a key player in this shift. With its control over the Danish Straits, the narrow passage connecting the Baltic Sea to the North Sea, Copenhagen holds a crucial choke point. Every Russian ship heading to or from the Baltic must pass through these waters. For years, Denmark allowed that flow under international law, but with tensions rising, it's tightening its security and surveillance. Danish F-16s and naval forces are now patrolling these routes more aggressively than ever before, backed by NATO intelligence and early warning systems. Putin knows that if Denmark and its allies decide to restrict or monitor Russian naval traffic more closely, his Baltic ambitions could collapse. At the same time, NATO has been conducting joint exercises in the Baltic region at a scale unseen since the Cold War. Warships from Britain, the U.S., Germany, and other member states are constantly training alongside Scandinavian fleets. Submarines, drones, and surveillance aircraft scan the waters daily, tracking every Russian movement. What was once an open playground for Russia's Baltic Fleet has turned into a heavily guarded zone. The message from NATO is clear. Any aggression here will be met with overwhelming force. Putin's strategy of intimidation no longer works. The transformation of the Baltic region also exposes a deep strategic flaw in Moscow's planning. Kaliningrad, Russia's isolated enclave between Poland and Lithuania, is now completely surrounded by NATO territory. Once a proud symbol of Russian military power, Kaliningrad has become a vulnerable outpost. Its supply lines depend on the very nations now hostile to Russia's ambitions. If a conflict ever erupted, Kaliningrad would be cut off almost immediately. This vulnerability keeps Russian military planners awake at night and adds to the growing sense of panic inside the Kremlin. Meanwhile, countries like Sweden and Finland are rapidly integrating into NATO's defense network. Sweden's advanced submarines, stealth corvettes, and anti-ship missile systems add immense power to NATO's northern defense line. Finland brings one of Europe's most capable armies, experienced in Arctic and forest warfare. Together, they form a wall that Russia cannot easily breach. Moscow's old tactic of dividing Western allies no longer works because these nations are united by one common goal: to prevent any Russian expansion. Economically, too, the Baltic Sea is slipping away from Russian control. Sanctions have crippled Russian exports, and many European ports have banned or restricted Russian vessels. The Nord Stream pipeline sabotage dealt another blow, cutting off one of Russia's major energy arteries. Without dominance over these waters, Russia loses not only military leverage but also vital trade influence. Putin's dream of controlling Europe's energy routes is fading fast, replaced by isolation and economic decline. Inside Russia, the panic is visible. State media is trying hard to spin the situation, claiming that NATO's moves are just temporary or defensive. But behind closed doors, analysts in Moscow admit that the Baltic balance has been permanently altered. Russian naval commanders complain about limited access, constant surveillance, and NATO's superior technology. The once proud Baltic Fleet is now forced into defensive postures, hiding near its bases and avoiding open confrontations. Putin's attempts to project power are being outmatched at every turn. This loss of control is not just military, it's psychological. The Baltic Sea was supposed to symbolize Russia's return as a great power after the Soviet collapse. Now it stands as a reminder of Putin's failures. His decision to invade Ukraine set off a domino effect that united the West more strongly than ever before. Instead of breaking NATO, he revived it. Instead of dividing Europe, he solidified its defense. Every move he made to expand influence has only made Russia more isolated. As the situation worsens, the Kremlin has been testing NATO's resolve with small provocations, by ships, airspace violations, and cyber attacks. But these actions are met with swift and coordinated responses. Denmark, Sweden, and Finland have invested heavily in air defense, radar systems, and rapid response forces. The U.S. has deployed additional troops and surveillance assets to the region. Britain and Germany have increased naval patrols. This united front sends a clear message: the Baltic Sea is no longer open to intimidation. Even within Russia's borders, cracks are starting to appear. Reports suggest that military morale in the Baltic Fleet is declining. Some officers question the value of maintaining costly bases that are now under constant watch. Fuel shortages, maintenance delays, and restricted trade routes are all taking their toll. Putin's aggressive stance has backfired, leaving his forces overstretched and under-resourced. The Kremlin's propaganda machine can't hide these realities forever. In contrast, Denmark and its NATO partners are doubling down on regional cooperation. Joint command centers, intelligence sharing agreements, and coordinated naval patrols have become routine. The goal is simple: ensure that the Baltic remains a secure, free, and open sea, something Putin can no longer claim. This unity has given smaller nations newfound confidence. Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, once fearful of Russian pressure, now stand tall under NATO's shield. For Putin, it's a humiliating reversal. What's even more damaging for Moscow is how this shift undermines its global image. The loss of influence in the Baltic sends a powerful message to other regions. If Russia can't maintain dominance in its own backyard, how can it claim to challenge NATO or the U.S.? Elsewhere, this perception weakens Russia's diplomatic leverage and reduces its ability to intimidate neighboring countries. In essence, the Baltic defeat symbolizes the decline of Russian power on the world stage. Meanwhile, Western technology continues to give NATO an edge. Surveillance drones, AI-powered radar systems, and advanced submarine detectors have made it nearly impossible for Russia to move unnoticed. Every ship, every sub, every aircraft is tracked in real time. This constant visibility leaves Putin with few options for surprise or strategic deception. It's a chessboard where every move is visible and every mistake is costly. As the months go by, Russia's frustration grows. Its Baltic fleet cannot expand, its trade routes are shrinking, and its alliances are weakening. China, while still a partner, shows little interest in getting involved in Europe's northern waters. Other nations that once admired Russia's defiance are beginning to see the cracks. The aura of strength that Putin built over 2 decades is fading, replaced by desperation and fear. Inside Europe, unity is stronger than ever. The Baltic states, once small and vulnerable, now play an outsized role in NATO's defense strategy. Their ports and airbases are critical for logistics, their intelligence networks vital for early warning. The collective determination of these nations is reshaping the continent's security map. For Putin, it's a nightmare scenario, a Europe that no longer fears him but stands united against him. As all this unfolds, the symbolism of the Baltic Sea grows even more significant. It's no longer just a body of water. It's a geopolitical line between democracy and aggression, freedom and control. Every NATO ship sailing its waves represents the failure of Putin's vision for dominance. Every joint exercise echoes the message that Russia's era of unchecked influence is over. Now, even Russian citizens are beginning to question the cost of Putin's actions. The economic pain, international isolation, and growing sense of defeat are hard to ignore. Despite the Kremlin's censorship, information finds a way through. People see how Russia's once powerful navy can't move freely, how its neighbors have turned away, and how the world views it as a declining power. For many, the dream of restoring greatness is turning into a nightmare of endless conflict. The Baltic Sea's transformation is a lesson in strategy and consequence. It shows how one man's ambition can unravel decades of balance and how unity can overcome intimidation. Putin's panic isn't just about losing territory, it's about losing relevance. The world has adapted, alliances have strengthened, and Russia's old playbook no longer works. Every diplomatic and military move by NATO now pushes Moscow further into isolation. So, as we look at today's Baltic Sea, it's clear that the tide has turned. The region once symbolized Russia's strength, but now it marks its decline. NATO controls the skies, the seas, and the narrative. Denmark, Sweden, and Finland stand guard, ensuring the Baltic remains secure. Putin's dream of dominance has sunk beneath the waves, replaced by a reality he cannot control. Thank you for watching, everyone. The situation in the Baltic is more than just a regional issue. It's a turning point in the global balance of power. What happens next will shape the future of Europe for generations. Make sure to stay tuned for more updates as this story continues to evolve. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth analysis of the world's biggest geopolitical shifts.